I think I would rather us talk about what it might look like or take from us to actually find freedom so that you really can indeed put God first in your life when it comes to generosity. Remember, right? It was a year ago or 10 years ago that your heart followed something that you had to have, and now what Jesus is saying, we're over here and we can only give ourselves to one thing first, right? Now, I'll just say this because I think some responsibility lies on us. If you're a dude, okay, if you're a guy, if you're a man, if you're a husband, if you're a dad. When Chris and I got married, I didn't have a clue what to do with money. It's only slightly improved since then, but a little bit better. And I don't know how it worked for me. I didn't really understand how it worked against me. They said, hey, do you want a JCPenney credit card? Sure, that sounds amazing. That was my first one, by the way. I don't even think you could use it anywhere anymore. But I just know that as a single guy in college, I was making plenty of money for myself. And if I wanted to take some out or keep some back, if I wanted to buy something, if I wanted to do something, I did it. And then that attitude just kind of carried over into our family. And Chris ended up being the one who had the burden of trying to manage all of it. And honestly, she's much better at it than I am still to this day, okay? But if you're a dude, and I'm just trying to call you up a little bit, you have got to step in and you have to have some kind of leadership over your finances. Whether that is for you personally to lead yourself or your spouse or for you to lead your family. And it might just simply be you're the one who steps in and says, you know what, we're not going to do that. No, we're going to stop doing that. Or you're the one who says, hey, we're going to do this and not that. Or you're the one who goes home after this, and at lunch today you go, listen, hey, we're going to need to make a change here, but we're going to have to honor God with what we have. And so, I didn't do a great job at that. So we made a few bad decisions here and there over the years. And, we had a lot of medical debt that we accumulated for kids, and we just could never save. And then in the year 2000, I was on staff at a church, and we were buying property, and we were going to build a building. And so, hey, we're going to do a capital campaign to raise some of the funds for this. And so, we prayed over all that. We said amen. I said, you know what? Let's look in the bank account. And would you believe that $25,000 had been deposited into our bank account after that prayer? Like, do you believe that? I wouldn't, because that's not how it happened. That would have been amazing. What we did was we scraped and we scraped and we scraped and we did extra stuff just to be able to make a very, very small commitment to that campaign so that I wasn't fired, essentially. I can't tell these people we can't commit to that. We're asking people to do this, going above and beyond. And it took several years for us to pay off that debt and to get into a better situation, slowly, one decision after another decision. And so in doing all that, the commitment was still the same. Okay, God, listen, we're going to keep trusting you with what we do here. We're going to keep putting you first, all right, believing your promise that you're actually going to take care of us. So 2 years ago, when we here stepped into a season called Forward, where we're collectively trying to generate $4 million of generosity around here, we were in position to make the largest commitment that we've ever made to anything in our life. And I was thinking about this week, just realizing that the pledge we just made 2 years ago, because we were in position to do it, was 10 times greater than the one that we weren't really able to do almost 20 years earlier. And I think there are extenuating circumstances that put some of us in a bad situation. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? I'm talking about decisions that we have made at some point in the past where we had to have something or we had to feel something or possess something, so we ran after it, and then our heart followed it, and then someone like me stands up here and says, hey, put God first in the way that you can really test it, how generous you are, and then we might get mad, or we might feel despair, or we might feel guilty. I'm just asking you to understand why you feel the tension that you feel and why it's so hard to actually give first. Because there's another way, right? Exactly what Jesus is proposing, that is commitment to trust God first. Right? Have I truly decided in my heart that God is first, or am I at least willing to test him in it? Now, I want to quickly run a story by you from the Old Testament, and this It was a shock to me that this is where I landed this week, but let me just share it with you and maybe you'll see why. 1 Kings chapter 17, right? There's a prophet named Elijah, and he gets sent by God to confront the evil king Ahab. And Ahab's the worst king in the history of Israel, right? He led them into false worship of a false god, sexual depravity. And the message that Elijah needs to deliver to the king is, hey, as a punishment, and just so God could get your attention, it's not going to rain for a couple of years, okay? And then God says, after you throw that punch, you need to run and hide, okay? Because he's going to try to kill you. And God's promise to Elijah is, but I'm going to take care of you. Okay, I'm going to take care of you. And God's taking care of him, and he's taking care of him. And then I want you to see one of the scenes from that time, because God says, all right, it's time to do something different. 1 Kings chapter 17, he says, get up, go to Zarephath that belongs to Sidon, and stay there. Look, I commanded a woman who is a widow to provide for you there. So God's saying, all right, leave here. I want you to go over there. And he's going to a place and to a woman who's not Jewish territory, does not believe and worship and serve the one true God. But Elijah got up, went to Zarephath. When he arrived at the city gate, there's a widow gathering wood. And Elijah called to her and said, hey, please bring me a little water in a cup and let me drink. And as she went to get it, he called to her and he said, please bring me a piece of bread in your hand. So if you're following or not, I don't know, but he shows up. Sure enough, there's a widow on the outside of town picking up sticks. He says, hey, could I get a little drink of water over here, and make sure you boil it first and then bring it back? And she's walking away and she's going to go get him the drink. And it's like he goes, one more thing. Could you just bring me a little piece of bread while you're at it? She said, listen, as the Lord your God lives, I don't have anything baked. I have a handful of flour in a jar. I got a little bit of oil in the jug. And right now I'm gathering sticks so I can go prepare for myself and my son. We're going to eat it, and then we're going to die. Hey, listen, buddy, I don't know if you can tell or not, but the drought is happening here as well. And I only have enough to make one last meal for me and my son, and then there's nothing more. And we're going to go have it, and then we're going to starve. And Elijah said to her, hey, listen, don't be afraid. Go and do as you have said, but first, make me a small loaf from it and bring it out to me. Elijah, he doesn't give up. Hey, don't worry, you can just make me a cake first. It's just almost comical, right? And afterward, make a little something for you and your son, right? With what's left, make a little something for yourself. He just seems like a jerk, doesn't he? Because this is what the Lord God of Israel says. So here comes a promise from God. The flour jar will not become empty. The oil jug will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the surface of the land. He's saying, look, if you just take the little that you have left and you trust God with the last of it, here's God's promise. You won't run out of what you need. So she proceeded to do everything according to the word of Elijah. The woman, Elijah, her household ate for many days. The flour jar did not become empty. The oil jug did not run dry, according to the word that the Lord had spoken through Elijah. Quick quiz. Feel free to shout out the answer. Did this promise make sense to her? No. Did she understand how it works? Probably not. When did she actually know that she could trust God? After she poured out the very last bit. See, she only realizes God's promise and blessing and provision on the backside of giving what she had. She had to essentially, what the New Testament would teach us, she had to sow something first before she began to reap anything. I mean, I read some stories like this. I go, well, why didn't God just send Elijah to a wealthy businessman, right? A landowner who had plenty of bread and oil, and it would be no problem at all. Because I think Elijah's not the main character at this point. I don't think God's trying to take care of Elijah as much as, because he already did that, right? As much as God wants to bless this widow and what he wants to do in her life. See, a short time later, the boy actually dies. He's got a terminal disease, right? And now she's calling on God. Oh, because of what just happened there, I'm going to call on God. And she asks Elijah to come back in. He brings the boy back to life. Listen, God's been doing stuff in this woman's life long before Elijah ever comes on the scene. I think he knows that she's down to her last meal. I think he knows that the son is likely going to die. I think he knows that she's feeling hopeless. And God decided, hey, listen, I'm going to bless her, but the path to that blessing was her faith. Right? Her pouring out what little she had when it didn't make sense and she'd never seen anything like this ever happen in her life before. Read the rest of the story. She's living under God's blessing. The boy's back to life. They have more than enough of everything they need, and she's living life with God first. The point of that story is not that God needs your money. That's not what I'm saying here today. The point is not that the church needs your money. It's not even really about money, by the way. The point is that you need God's blessing in your life. And for some reason, the path to God's blessing begins or it stalls out with generosity, right? Trusting leads to the blessing, or the pathway to receiving is releasing. Now, I want you to hear somebody else's story today who's worked through a lot of these things, made some bad decisions, made some great decisions. I just want you to hear them share it today. Check this out.
Hi, I'm Dave Kolb, and this is my wife, Christy, and we actually took Financial Peace twice. Once back in 2017 and then again in 2022 to go ahead and have a refresher course.
So in 2017, we took Financial Peace for the first time, and we were able to complete baby step 1, which is save $1,000. And then Irma hit. And we finally had enough money in an emergency fund to be able to, really having time off work and things like that, we were able to make it through the hurricane. And that's really what lit the fuse for us wanting to, continue with Financial Peace. Baby step 2, I believe, is to pay off all of your debt that you have, like revolving credit cards and loans on things, not the house. And so we were able to use the debt snowball and really just combine all of our payments that we were able to, and we were able to pay off over $75,000 in debt between 2017 and 2022. During that time was when Forward was launched here, and that's when we really started tithing in 2022. And we've just seen God show up and work so much in our lives where we've had excess when we weren't expecting to have it, and at the exact right moment that someone around us, someone in our small group or someone in our family needed some help, and we were able to really help them out with the excess on top of being able to tithe and all of the things that we were already doing with the paying off debt. So with Dave being in the Navy, he's a mechanic, and he's had carpal tunnel for quite a few years. And doing Financial Peace University and putting all of the baby steps in place, continuing to the 3 to 6 month emergency fund and savings, we have been able to set aside enough money that he actually went out on short-term disability at the end of September. Even though he hasn't started getting paid for short-term disability yet, because it's a process and it takes some time, like they're saying, we are set, we're good. We have enough in our excess that we're covered with all of our needs, with some of our wants, and then even with Christmas coming up, like we're comfortable where we're at, and we're going to be able to, just push through until he goes back to work at the beginning of December, and we'll be right on track with where we should be.
Some of the things that we were able to get past was, when we were newly married, we financed pots and pans, and we had a timeshare, and we were not the smartest of people with our funds, but going through this and paying off the things that we had, and just learning the principles behind it really allowed us to have a different outlook on the money, and being able to snowball everything together to get rid of our debt and be able to tithe and help people and just have a more happy lifestyle, not worrying about money. It's really been a blessing.
We would not be where we're at today in our faith and in our finances if it wasn't for Financial Peace. If we could say one thing about Financial Peace, is just start with one step. Just start with one step and see how much it'll change your life, because it's changed ours in immeasurable ways. And
knowing that finance is one of the biggest reasons for arguments in a household, this has definitely given us a happier household.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I love a lot of things from their story. One, you heard them reference a thing called financial peace. And so that's just and you're like, man, I would love to learn the kinds of things that they learned. Well, then kind of put it on your radar, because we'll offer that in January as a small group option for you, okay? And so keep that in mind there. But I just love, the idea of, hey, maybe we made some bad decisions, but let's commit to putting God first and trusting that he's going to take care of us, and then they have so many blessings to share. So, you're sitting here, and I kind of know a little bit about what you're thinking, because I've been sitting there with you all before, and, well, I'm not sure that we can do that. That's one of the things we think. I don't know if we can do that, or okay, you want us to give more money to Christ Church, and you know what? Well, you don't know my story. Okay, you're right, I don't. Here's what I do know, all right? Let me take the long way around. I'm about to have a birthday, all right? And in another week. Sunday the 17th to be exact, if you want to put that in your calendar. You could get me a gift or a card, but I might not be here, okay? So it's been a really busy 4 or 5 months for us, just a lot of things around here at the church, and we've been through some things, and we're about to go through some more, and, we got these 2 grandkids that we haven't seen very much of, and so we're like, man, how could we go see them and work that in? But, next Sunday, birthday, on Monday, we're going to pack up, and we're going away for a week, okay? And you're not going to know where I am, and it's going to be amazing. But the point of all that is I'm about to have a birthday. And every year, the number just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Anybody, you see that? And you're like, wow, that escalated quickly, and I don't know how that happened. And the time that I probably have left as lead pastor in this position here gets smaller and smaller. And that's not me saying I have a plan or an announcement or anything. That's just basic math. You understand that, right? And so as that gets closer and closer, and I see the time, and I see, the money that's required, and I see the opportunities in front of us that are so crucial, I have a few things that are starting to crystallize even more for me that I want to give the very best of what I have left to see accomplished, okay? Like dreams, and so I have some resolves, like things that God has actually placed in my heart. And, for one, like I could put in a sentence for you. I can actually have it written in a sentence what I think is still the calling on my life, okay? So that's what I mean by crystallizing. One of those things is that I actually, deep down inside, you can believe me or not, don't actually really care if our church grows that much more numerically. If it comes at the expense of making sure that Jesus is priority number one. It can't come at the expense of continuing to challenge you to trust God with absolutely everything you have. So here's a couple of my resolves. One is that this would always be a place for genuine seekers. Okay, this would always be a place where people could walk in for the very first time and feel welcome. And so, if you're like, okay, I'm a beginner, or I'm just learning, or I have questions, and is this a safe place to do that? I want to figure out how to take my first steps. Well, absolutely. If that's you, welcome. I think you've found an amazing place to do that, honestly. But one of the other resolves is it's probably going to get a little bit more uncomfortable for the rest of us, okay? And I don't use this term in a derogatory way. I just don't have a better one. But it's going to get a little bit more uncomfortable, so I want to call us up a little bit who might be what we would call consumers, okay? And I'm primarily talking about, hey, those of us who don't really have any skin in the game, okay? And so you're not really serving God with your time or your money or your talents in a way that prioritizes the kingdom and God's righteousness. And it doesn't mean you're not a Christian. That's not what we're saying. It's just that, and I say this as kindly as I can just because I love you, there are plenty of other churches in our community that you could just go sit in. And I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they require of you. I don't need to know that. I don't pastor those churches. What we're going to do, it's just really a heads up to say, we're going to ramp up the temperature even more on a lot of things around here, meaning I am going to continue to unapologetically ask you to serve and to give and to invite people who don't know Jesus and reorganize your life around trusting God with absolutely everything that you have. Not to build my kingdom, not to build this kingdom, but listen, there are still tens of thousands of people. I need you to understand that number. Tens of thousands of people in our little county who are not yet connected to a life-giving church, let alone a life-giving relationship with Jesus, which means, right, we got work to do, and it's going to take all of us. Okay, it's going to take all of us to come together. Listen, last month, okay, in October, everywhere I went shopping for the most part, do you know people were asking something from me? Hey, will you give to breast cancer? Yeah, okay, I'll do that. Why? Because the research is important to people I love. Hey, can you support the fireman or the sheriff? Okay, I want that extra protection that comes with the sticker on my car. Got it. Hey, would you give to this candidate? Would you support the wetlands? What about global warming? Because, right, here's the pitch. If you get involved in this cause, the world's going to be a better place. Yes, the church is funded by you and I. Big surprise. It doesn't run on love or prayers or magic. Jesus does, okay? I don't know if you knew that or not. But the followers of Jesus, okay, are those of us who have prioritized his kingdom first, and we're convinced he is who he said he was, he can do the things that he said he could do, and anybody who would trust in him could actually have a full life. And we believe it so much, right, that we're willing to rearrange our time and our treasure to see that more and more people can actually receive what it is that we have received. Let me ask you one question, a couple of next steps. We'll get out of here. Aren't you glad you came today? Here's the question. How would you describe your view of money? Okay, how would you describe your view of money? I'll give you three possibilities. One, false security. Now, you probably wouldn't use that term if that's how you actually describe it, but you're actually counting on something other than trust in God to take care of you, okay? Now, there's not a lot that I could actually say other than, listen, you already know that doesn't work. Like, you already know it, okay? And you don't even need to believe in Jesus or believe what he said to know that. The issue for those of us who might be there is not that we're unwilling to see that money is inadequate to care for us in our deepest moments of need, right? The issue is rather that we're not yet willing to believe that God can take care of us better than anything else. So maybe you would just own it and go, okay, I'm trusting something else and I'm actually willing to say it. Listen, the next step for you, that's all I'm asking us to do today, is would we all just take this next step? The next step for you is a really big one, okay? Because the next step for you is not even to give money. That's not it. That's not what we're asking. The next step for you is to give the leadership of your life fully to Jesus first. That's a big step. That you would first resolve the issue of who will be the Lord or the leader of your life, because until you settle that, okay, he is who he said he was, he can do what he said he can do, he can connect you into a relationship back to God the Father, he offers grace and mercy and forgiveness, he offers to lead us into the very best life possible. Once you settle that, okay, your view of money and generosity and absolutely everything else in your life will follow that. Number two, your view of money is you're fearful. I get it, right? You say, listen, I just don't know that I can't do that right now, or we don't have extra to work with right now, because maybe you're working on a thing, right? Hey, I got a thing going on. I'm starting something new, and when I can get it rolling, then I can do something when we have, maybe a little bit more. I don't think we're selfish people. That's not what I think in the least bit. I think we genuinely look at what we have and what we need to do, and it just doesn't make sense for most of us, right? I get that. But the principle we're learning here is that the statement, okay, that God is truly first, happens when we demonstrate it by giving first. That's just what Jesus is saying here, right? And I do believe that God can get you out of whatever you got yourself into faster than you can without him. The next step, okay, for those of us who are fearful, is not complicated. I mean, it might be difficult, but it's not complicated, and this is it. Try it. That's it. Just try it. Right? Give something, even if it doesn't make complete sense to you in the moment, right? Test God's promises here and see if he doesn't do what he said and take care of you and what you need. And then the last group of us would go, okay, I would describe my situation as faithful, right? Hey, I made a decision to actually put God first, and I've been trusting him with what I have, and maybe you've been given for a short period of time, or maybe you've been given for decades, I don't know. And now you got some history, okay, to actually see that God has proven himself to be faithful to you. Well, here's the challenge, because we're all taking the next step. Here's the challenge is, it can be easy for some of us who have become comfortable after giving so long, right? Maybe meaning we just adjusted to a change in our lifestyle that we made, and we're no longer actually living by faith. We're kind of coasting when it comes to generosity, right? We adjusted our life around a new way of relating to money, that we're no longer actually trusting God anymore. So the next step for you is, okay, if I'm here, what does it look like to actually increase my giving in a way that requires me to trust in God? Okay, I can give 1% more, 3%, 5, 10, whatever that looks like, I don't know. So let's end here. It's an all play. I've thought a lot about this. I think it's true. Trusting God does not always lead to giving, but giving will always lead to trusting, okay? Trusting God does not always lead to giving, but giving will always lead to trusting. See, you likely don't learn to trust God and then go, okay, I trust God, I'm going to give. It's actually the opposite. You rather learn to trust God because we're giving, right? Trusting does not lead to giving as much as giving leads to trusting. And again, I said it's not a giving series, it's a trust series. Because when we're willing to take a step and trust God with our money and what we have, why would we also not then trust Him with absolutely everything in our life, right? So I don't know how you work that out in your context. I believe God's probably impressed something on you today. I think He may during this prayer in this last song. And whatever next step He's leading you to take. What if you just say, okay, God, I'm here. We sang it. I'm available. I don't understand it, but I'm going to step into it. So God, this morning we just come to you and we pray over these things. We pray over the words that we have read, the words that I've spoken, God, the words that we have heard, and the word that we will receive from you. So God, these are sometimes challenging things. They're uncomfortable for a lot of us, but God, they excite me because I know the freedom that we can find when we choose to trust you in absolutely everything. So God, this morning the prayer is, God, would you increase our faith? And God, if you want to do that through practicing generosity, I pray that we would respond to that in these next few moments, truly declaring that you are first in our life, believing that you'll give us everything we need. So God, we just thank you for this time this morning. God, I ask you bless the people in this room, those who are watching, as we take these sometimes challenging steps to try to trust you more. And we want to pray these things today in your name. Amen.
Where I lay it down, every burden, every cloud. This is my surrender, and this is my surrender. And here is where I lay it down, every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. Yes, I will make room. This here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is mine. This is mine. This here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is my surrender, and this is my surrender.
We hope that you enjoyed the service and that you connected through worship and through the message. If you came today for the first time and you didn't have a chance to stop by one of our first-time guest tents, we would still love the opportunity to connect with you. And so the easiest way to do that is to scan the QR code on the screen. It'll take you to a page with all of our next steps. The first one there is going to be the online connection card that takes just a few seconds to fill out. But if you were interested in any of the other next steps mentioned throughout the service, like generosity or VIP lunch or baptism, you can find information on those there as well. We hope that you enjoyed the service today, and we'll see you next week.